Do you ever grow tired of looking at those plain block walls that line the perimeter of our garden spaces? Well, that was definitely the case with me a couple of years ago until I figured out a way to bring in some beautiful elements of vertical gardening that really did enhance the look of this side of the yard by adding some beautiful color and texture by the way of beautiful annuals. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. Stick around, I can't wait to show you. I really like the idea of vertical gardening, and we've definitely used our vertical space on this block wall for a number of years, and I've really been happy with the results. But there are so many various ideas out there online from people who create their own DIY projects that create a really nice sense of character to those more formal gardens that have urns that are about the size of my shoulders with some beautiful thrillers and spilling annuals over the side, all the while planted underneath with some gorgeous hedges and maybe some annuals or perennials as well. It really does create a dramatic look, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go kind of in between. It's definitely going to be informal because I'm going to use these really inexpensive resin containers that I found from Walmart. They were only about $7 or $8, and I was really happy with these last year because they do have that water reservoir on the bottom, which allows them to retain a little bit more water, and which is important because when you plant on this block wall, and this is a south-facing wall, it really does bake at the end of the spring and definitely into the summer. So that little bit added moisture really is beneficial to your plants because you don't want them to dry out and bake when they're in the sun all day long like these will be. Now, even though I was really happy with these containers last year, I did not love the stark white look along the block wall. I think they looked a little bit cheap for my taste. I mean, the white was nice, it was nice and clean, but I think I'm going to dress them up a little bit by spray painting them black, which will give them a little bit more of a formal look, and the plants or annuals that I'm going to plant in here will pop a little bit more. It's only temporary because I'm going to plant some super bells in these containers, one in each, and eventually over time they will drape over the side and cascade with some beautiful color and completely cover these pots. But in the meantime, at the beginning, since it will take just a little while for them to get to that point, I'm going to spray paint them because I think it really is something that is going to take them to the next level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand these down a little bit to prep them for their spray paint. A lot of them have a sticker on the outside that I didn't really mind. I kind of turned them to the back, but since I'm going to spray paint them, I'm going to remove that sticker, sand them down a little bit, wipe them down, spray paint them, let them dry, and then when they're ready, I'm going to plant them up. So that's what we're going to do right now. So it's the next day and I'm really happy with the way these turned out. I mean, they're not perfect. I didn't do the most perfect paint job, but they are completely covered, and I made sure to flip them over after a day to kind of give that rim a little bit of that black color so that when I plant these, you won't be able to see the white any longer. But yeah, I think they look really nice, and I feel like it's a big upgrade compared to the stark white that we had there before, so that's going to look great. And as I set these down here by these two beautiful varieties of super bells, I think that this black container is really going to make these blooms pop. Now, I had some great ideas for putting two different varieties of super bells together. I still think that it's going to look great, but I didn't realize how close to the block wall color these variety, this variety specifically was. This is the vintage double coral, and it's so pretty. I love the color, and I wanted something a little bit lighter than this one over here, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it really is pretty, but it's pretty close to the block wall color. It's a little bit lighter. You'll still be able to see it, but I think from planting it from day one in these black containers, I think it's really just going to show off that really nice color in a way that the white pots probably wouldn't have. So the other variety that we're going to plant in these inexpensive painted containers is this double ruby calibrachoa or super bells. It's going to be so beautiful. I really did want to have two different varieties on the wall to create some interest. These are pretty close in color, but yet they still are really, you know, a different color. So you're going to get a little bit of contrast, not as much as I intended because I hadn't seen these in person. And so when you order in line, you don't necessarily know how deep or rich the color will be, but still, I think it's going to go great back here and it's going to look nice on the back wall. So I'm going to get these planted up. We're going to use the moisture control soil because these will dry out really quickly in the summer months. One of the reasons why I like these is because they have that water tray on the bottom built in, so they will hold a little bit of water, even though, like I always say, calibrachoa always do like to dry out, and they still will dry out. But believe me, when it's in the hot summer months, those plants will drink up all available moisture, and by the next morning when they're watered by our drip irrigation system, it'll be just enough to sustain them through the next day. If it really gets hot, if we're above like 95 or 100, I might have to run the drip twice, but for the most part, in my experience, these containers are perfect for these beautiful annuals. So since these containers will be at the uppermost part of the block wall, I like to choose things that cascade over the side, and of course they will eventually cover this container. But I love that because it really does create a nice soft cascading look that is dramatic and pleasing to the eye. It really softens the look of that hardscape, and it really does create a really nice contrast between what's growing in the raised beds and what's growing in the containers. Okay, so before I get these planted up, I'm going to use the same method that I do all the time pretty much when I have a small container like this, which I like to call the pop-in method, by using one of the existing containers that the plants are currently in and using that as a mold, so I can just fill in the soil and then pop this out and pop the plant in. It works out so nicely and extremely convenient when you have a small container, like I said before. So I'm going to take some of this moisture control soil, put it in the bottom, and that's just enough to fill the lower third of this container. And then I'm going to put some of this low release fertilizer from Proven Winners in there, just a little bit, along with some plant tone. And I know this seems really excessive, but this is a small container. They are going to be in here all season long. They will be watered by drip irrigation. And even though they do have that saucer built in on the bottom, they will be taking a lot of the nutrients up into the plant, along with some of it dripping over the side. So it's important that we keep our containers fortified so that our plants can make it through and really perform like we want them to. And if I didn't do that, I probably would be lacking in blooms and maybe even some of the growth of the overall plant as well. The moisture control soil is fortified a little bit, but in my experience, it's not enough. So I add a little bit more in there just to make sure they're happy throughout the season. Then I'm going to take the pre-existing container here, or the can, put that in there. You can hear the baby birds behind me. There's a nest underneath the eaves in the house behind me. So cute. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of that soil and fill in around that container. Just taking a little bit more of that soil and filling around that center container there. And when I'm doing this, I want to make sure that I leave at least an inch of space at the very top to give it a little bit of a rim. This way, when I come by once a week or when I remember, I can fill this container with the water-soluble fertilizer. And if I had it all the way to the top with soil, then it would just run over the sides. And I want to make sure that it has enough to really sink deep down and get absorbed into the soil. So I want to make sure I have a little bit of a lip there. Press that down in there, making sure that I don't have any air pockets. All right, pushing that down to where it's really compact in there, and then popping that container out just by shaking it loose and then you're left with a mold so that when you bring your other plant in there, it'll just drop right in. And boy, these are so healthy. I can tell you right now, it's going to look gorgeous right from the start. All right, a little bit healthy root system there. Going to break that up just a little bit, although it's not completely necessary to do that. And then just pop that in just like that. And voila, instant color. Pressing this around. Looks so nice. Already an amazing container, and we haven't even gone through the rest of them yet. I can't wait to do that. I might trim just a couple of these off. It's not necessary, but just to kind of stimulate some of that growth habit. Some of the ones that are hanging over the side, just barely. I like it to hang over because eventually it's going to do that, but the ones that are really leggy and are not necessary, I will just give them a nice little trim. And you can tell just those couple that I trimmed off really does clean that up, and that will definitely encourage more growth from the center and more blooms from the center. So beautiful. All right, let's move on to the other ones. Okay, so all 8 of these are planted up, and I really am happy with the way they turned out. I'm just happy through the whole process, and I can't wait to get them on the wall. I think what I'm going to do this time, because every single year that I do this on the wall, I alternate, or I put actually a alternating color within the same pair, because I have 2 here, 2 here, 2 there, and then on down by my boxwoods I have 2 more, and usually I put 2 contrasting colors right next to each other, but I think I'm going to plant these in pairs. So I'm going to do 2 of the double ruby here, 2 of the vintage coral here, 2 of the double ruby, and then vintage coral, and we'll see how they turn out. And if I don't like it after a while and I think it needs to be moved or maneuvered, then I can just switch it out, because that's the beauty of container gardening. You just move it to a different spot until you're happy with the end result. So I'm going to get these in their brackets. The brackets that I have on the wall are just a really inexpensive L bracket that I purchased from the same place, Walmart of all places. And it has a part in here or an area where you could kind of drill it into wood, but I have these eye hooks here along the wall, and I just kind of set them in there along with a wood block in the back, and that balances it. So I did not put these eye hooks in here. They were here before we moved in, and it looks like somebody had drilled and then filled it with a little bit of fill or mortar, and then it kind of solidified, so they're in there really strong. So that's something I guess you could do too. And if I ever wanted to add any to the wall on any of our other walls, I could simply repeat the same process. But I like having one wall with my vertical gardening, because just like in our homes, if we have an accent wall, it's an accent wall because it's just one of the walls. I figured if I put more vertical gardening around the perimeter on my other walls, it would maybe get to be a little bit too much. So I'm just going to have this one wall be the focal point, which is perfect because when you walk in from my gate, you see this wall immediately. And also when you come out of the house, it's right here on the side and it's in plain view, and it's looking beautiful for the most part when I do have it planted up. So we're going to do that right now. I'm going to get them situated, and you're going to love how it looks. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm really happy with the way this project turned out, you guys. I think painting the pots was the right choice because they really do stand out against the block wall. And even though I was really concerned about the color of the block wall in comparison to the color of the double vintage coral super bells right here, I think that black canvas underneath really does help showcase the color of the blooms so it doesn't get lost with the drab color of the block wall here. I'm so excited. I think I really do like also how we put them, or I put them in pairs of two of the double ruby, then the vintage coral, then the double ruby, and then ending with the vintage coral. I think it's fantastic. And from this vantage point, it really does kind of tie in together this theme in the backyard. One thing that is really important to remember if you do plant things up on your block wall, or if you do any kind of vertical gardening, you want to make sure that you give them the nutrients that they need, like I said before, and you want to make sure you watch the water because this will definitely radiate the heat. Another thing to keep in mind if you are planting calibrachoa, and I know I've said this before in other videos, you want to make sure you watch them for a couple key pests. One is aphids. If they do get stressed, they can really get attacked by aphids, so be on the lookout for those. So they're also prone to budworms, and you can take care of those by spraying them with some BT that is meant for organic gardening. So it's not super harsh, but it does take care of it, and it does do the trick so that you can keep your blooms all season long, because once you get budworms, your plant will look beautiful, but your blooms will be gone. So that's important to remember as well. The overall idea here is this was really plain before we added these pots, and I think it is a great way to really enhance your space, especially if you're limited on space. And even if you're not limited on space, vertical gardening can really take your space to the next level. We hope you enjoyed today's video. This one was really a lot of fun for me, and I hope to see you again very soon in our next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.